Hello. So, and slightly, we are here with UBL Season 12. And, this is going to be an interesting one. So, we all want to play with the Indigo Discmons. And that's what this format's going to be. It's going to be Regulation F. Pretty much the same as last time. We just want to play with Regulation F mons. Same format. Couple tier shifts. But other than that, we're going to jump right into the spice of this season, if you couldn't tell by the title. It's going to be a very different draft for me, because we are doing a random draft. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We are spicing things up dramatically. So, for those who don't know, and haven't checked them out, I would recommend it. I have won the 2 previous seasons of the UBL. Season 10, I won with a team focused around Reggie Alecki, and I love that team to bits. And then last season, I built arguably one of the best teams there is. Probably not one of my favorites, but just genuinely one of the best. Like, it just did everything. A team focusing around Ogerpon Cornerstone and Volcarona, along with just having amazing other options at my disposal. So this time I'm not allowed to do that. I can't build properly. I can't sit here and plan for legitimately like 8 hours for a draft. I can't pick, Pokemon to an extent anyway. So, we're doing a random draft. Now, how on earth am I doing a random draft? Well, so I have some liberty, and that I can put together a, perhaps competent team rather than just spinning a wheel of every single Pokemon that's available on the draft board. What I'm going to be doing is, I have a wheel! That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a wheel! And it's got every single type on the wheel, and every single round, I'm going to be picking a Pokemon of the type that I spin on this wheel. So, yeah, that's the whole premise. I'm really excited to see how this goes. It's going to be a chaotic fest, and I'm going to be kind of drafting as we go, basically. I'm going to try and hop on anytime I'm available to spin this wheel and pick my Pokemon, or I might be spinning the wheel after I've made a pick so I can at least think about what I want and then hop back on, tell you guys what I'm picking, and then we'll spin the wheel for the next typing. That's probably going to be the most logical thing for me to do, so I can actually think on what I want to get, and maybe things will go and I'll have to reconsider, but yeah. So we are the first pick our first pick, we are 3rd pick overall, so only a couple Pokemon have even gone. I think it's like Torkoal and Goldengo. I'm also kind of late. They started the draft while I was asleep, so I am holding up the draft. So without further ado, let's spin that wheel! And we are starting off with a water type. Ooh. Okay. A water type. That's not bad. Water types are great typing. There's a lot of great Pokemon of that typing. So, we pull up the dock up here. Yeah, so I ideally don't want to pick an S, I'll be honest. So, Ogerpon Wellspring is like the best water type, right? I could go for Walking Wake. I'm not going Dondozo because I don't hate myself. So I think I could either go straight for Ogerpon Wellspring. It's a great Pokemon. I used Ogerpon Cornerstone last season. Amazing Pokemon. But I don't think I want to try and go for my S just yet. For those who don't know, how it works here is we get an 11 picks guaranteed, and it's tier-based systems, so we get 1S, 1A, 1B, 1S, 1A, 2 Bs, 2 Cs, and a D, and then four free picks. And you see the points at the top is how we allocate those. So we've got 250 points, and you can see A's cost 100, B's cost 75, C's cost 50, D's cost 25, then E's, which are the garbage ones that literally are just trash, that don't offer any value, are just 0. So, yeah. The thing with this S plus tier is if you take an S plus, your A gets replaced with B. So I would be kind of really forcing myself into a rough position already by taking that, so I kind of want to avoid that. There are a couple options in terms of good water type. There's Rotom Wash, because I still want to get, I think I want to get an upper tier one, because like I think it would kind of be a bit weird if I just went straight down to like a B or a C tier. What do we want here? Palafin's an option. Palafin actually went down a tier. It's actually now an A tier. And I think that could be an interesting way to start things off. The other option I'm thinking about is Primarina or maybe Suicune. Both of those are pretty reasonable picks. Like, Suicune is just a really good Pokemon. It gives me Tailwind off the bat, which is great, and really versatile. Or I could go with Primarina, which is just a great Pokemon overall. Does a lot of good special damage. I kind of want to do Palafin, just because it went down a tier. Like, it was an S tier, and it was just like, no one's using it. The problem is I used Palafin before in draft, and it was kind of awkward to play with. But, I don't know. Maybe Suicune's not a bad call here. Or maybe just Primarina, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a Fairy type, to be honest. Yeah, I kind of like Primarina. I've used Sylveon, and Sylveon was great, and Primarina's kind of like Sylveon. So, yeah, I think for our first pick, we are going to go with Primarina. So we're going to put that in here. So, yeah, I like Primarina just because, like, it's really bulky, it's got the Liquid Voice potential with Hyper Voice, so it's got Spread Water moves. It can just do a lot of damage. It's also got a lot of good utility. Does this thing get Haze? No, I thought it did. But it's got Perish Song, so the potential for, like, Perish Trapping. No, it does get Haze. I thought it did. So, yeah, I think that's the way I want to go. Yeah. It's kind of sad that it doesn't get, like, a good, like, single target water move. Because I'm pretty sure Sparkling Aria hits both. Like, I think Sparkling Aria is like Surf. So, I think if I want to rely on a water move, I've got to rely on, like, Hydro Pump, which kind of sucks. So maybe I don't. Didn't Suicune keep Scald, actually? Hold on. If Suicune kept Scald, I actually might go with that, to be honest. I thought it did. It did. Alright, yeah, no, we're going Suicune. This gives us, honestly, just... Yeah, no, we're gonna go with Suicune. I think it gives us a really solid baseline for the team. So, like, it gives us Tailwind, it gives us good utility, like Snarl, Roar, which is nice, Icy Wind. It just gives us a really solid base. And at worst, we can also start making it a bit more offensive. Like, we can bulk it for what we need to, and then go from there. So, yeah, I think we go Suicune. Plus, we can Terra this thing, actually. We're allowed to Terra anything that isn't in the S or S plus tier at any point. So yeah, there's like potential that we just start Calm Mining with this thing. So, yeah, we'll go with that. We're gonna go with Suicune. We're gonna lock it in. And, yeah. So, what are we doing here? Let me go... I will pause it real quick, and then I will, then we'll spin for the next one, and, we'll see what happens. Alright, so, to give myself a little bit of time, I'm actually kind of interested in Suicune. I'm kind of excited. So yeah, we've drafted Suicune successfully, and, yeah, I'm just kind of looking at Suicune's, like, moves. It's kind of limited a little bit, but maybe with Terra Blast it could be good. But it's got enough coverage and utility that I think we can do some good stuff with it. So, so I know what I need to be thinking about for my next pick. We are going to once again spin the wheel, and the thing is, you might notice we can absolutely get duplicates. So yeah. Let's see what we get for this next one, so I can think about it before it comes back to me in the draft. And yeah, let's see what we've got for our second pick. We've got another water type. Oh, all right. Well, so be it. I'm probably going to be drafting a bit of a lower tier water type, as my plan here, unless I just decide, screw it, let's go for rain. Just because I don't want two water types that do similar things, but we'll give it some thought, and then once it gets back to me, I will, hop back on and, see you guys for that. So, yeah, this is going to be really exciting. Alright, and we are back. So, I gave it some consideration, and I actually considered a few options here for our round 2 pick. So, I'm actually kind of glad that I gave it a little bit of thought, because my first options weren't exactly very good Pokemon. I think at this point I have at least chosen a good Pokemon. So, I don't know why the dock's not actually loading, but hey ho. So the thought process was I wanted to go with a lower tier water. They want to double up super high on the water types. Obviously Suicune's pretty versatile, but it's going to be mostly support, so I knew I wanted something offensive. My first thought was honestly, all the way down here with Wugtrio. And then I saw Wishcash, and I was very tempted just to annoy Rat. Because Rat hates that thing, but I knew I would never knew I would probably only bring it for him, so, you know. But then, you know, I looked at some other options. There was, I was like, oh, I could pick up where is it, Dugong? I could pick up Dugong because it gets Fake Out. I was like, that's a bit more lean to supporty. But really there wasn't much else. I was just like, well, I guess I'll go with Wugtrio from like the D tier, and I was like, well, let me look at C tier, and I was like, well, there's Swampert, which can be offensive, but it's also kind of supporty. I don't really want to go with that. Poliwrath, Samurott, but then I kind of noticed this guy, Alligator, and I was like, you know, for a C tier, that's pretty good. So let me grab that real quick, because it's kind of like the opposite of what Suicune is. So yeah, our second pick is for Alligator. The reason why, like I say, I went for Alligator is because it's like the opposite of Suicune, right? Suicune's this bulky special attacker who does mostly support things, but if it's going to set up, it's going to set up on the special side. For Alligator is a decently bulky, physical attacker with the Sheer Force ability that is here to do a lot of damage. Whether that be with Swords Dance or Dragon Dance setup, it will be doing a lot of damage and will probably not be supporting, but it does get some notable supporting options such as Breaking Swipe and Snarl, which is okay. It got Scale Shot this generation, which is cool, I think. Pretty sure it got Scale Shot. No. I thought I literally just saw it. No, yeah, I did. Okay. Yeah, it gets Scale Shot. So you can do, like, Swords Dance Scale Shot and pretend you're, like, a Haxorus, which is kind of cool. Like a Water-type Haxorus. You can, like, Terra Dragon this thing. Like I say, for the most part, it's going to be it's just going to be offensive. Like, it's going to do big damage with them Sheer Forces. So, with Sheer Force, like, Liquidations, Ice Punches... I don't know if it gets anything else super noteworthy on the, with the Sheer Force itself. I think it's just mainly the Water Ice that it's going to be using for the Sheer Force bonuses, but then things like Earthquake, I wish you got High Horsepower, or I get Stomping Tantrum, that's at least decent, Superpower, and Aqua Jet for the priority. So, yeah, it's like, it's a solid Pokemon. Absolutely. So, yeah, with that, we are going to hopefully not get another Water type, and maybe get something else that can support our team, or just give us some variety. Because we kind of got some middling speed tiers right now, which is not bad. It's absolutely fine. So maybe it can give us some options to get some slower stuff, maybe really fast stuff, maybe, I don't know. We don't know what we're going to get, so let's spin that wheel! And we are getting... No. Oh, barely, we got a Grass type! Okay, thank God. Oh my God, I was gonna be like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. Okay, a Grass type. So, initial thoughts, I actually had an initial thought on if I want my Grass type, if I get Grass, there's a good chance I actually wanting to just go for Rillaboom. I'm going to give it a little bit more thought, because there's a good chance maybe I don't, especially with a Suicune start, but there's also Thwackey, I could take Thwackey, I think we made it more expensive. No, we didn't. We left it normal. I might snipe that from Lord Nobody, but the last time I took Thwackey from Lord Nobody, they took Rillaboom, and then we were all sad because he sort of no, it is C-tier. Okay, yeah, no, I'm not picking it. There's Serena. Serena's a good Grass type. We could go for a Rotom Fan. Not Rotom Fan, Rotom Mo. Rotoms are always good. Hisuian Electrode. That's actually pretty reasonable. They'll give us an electric type. And, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the Electrodes actually got raised up because they now get Electro Whip, which is kind of cool. So, yeah. I'm going to give it a little bit more thought, of course. So, I will see you guys when I do decide to make that pick. So, we are back. I have given it a little bit of thought. It actually didn't take nearly as long this time around. And that's because I decided pretty quickly what I wanted. I mentioned the Pokemon before, and that is going to be a Pokemon that's actually crossed off because I already drafted it, and then went to go do some other things. And that is Hisuian Electrode. So we get both an electric and a grass type. This was the only strategy I could think of, by the way, was make sure I could try and get dual types, because then, like, hey, I get 2 types instead of 1, so I can make sure I have diversity in types. But yeah, I think Hisuian Electrode's great. The abilities are fine, but the speed tier is great. It gives me a super top-end speed tier, which, you know, like, not a lot of even Scarfers can outspeed, and it also gives me it gives me a fast form of speed control, because Suicune's bulky, But Hisuian Electrode's fast and has access to Electro Web, so it can be a fast form of speed control, and can do respectable damage. Fast Taunt as well, fast Thunder Wave, and could do good damage, just overall. So it's a scary face as well for speed control. If I don't want to worry about missing Thunder Wave, and Worry Seed for maybe some ability stuff. I don't know. There's options with it. Get both screens or just Reflect? Just Reflect. That's still fine. But yeah, I've gone with Hisuian Electrode. So this is ACC, and I ended up using Suicune as a backup A. So like in my 3 points, so it's not taking up one of my SA slots. So I can still go for an S+, which I did want to try and do. So right now I've used 100 of my 253 points, so I've got 150 left, and then I've got both my C tiers, which honestly I think these are 2 great C tiers. So yeah, with the buff and giving it Electro Web, I actually would have considered drafting this regardless. I think this is actually a really solid Pokemon. But that's not what you're here for. You're not here to listen to me ramble. You're here to see me spin that wheel. Please be something a bit different. Oh, we're on the other side of the wheel, and we're getting a ghost type. Okay. So Goldengo is gone. That's the first one. Fluttermane is banned. That's the other one. That immediately come to mind. So let's have a quick look. Maybe some upper tier ones. Gengar, no. Gengar's not worth it. Dusclops, maybe? That's a, good Trick Room setter. I don't really know, actually. Ghost is kind of a type that I wasn't really anticipating. Skeledirge, maybe? That's, like, okay. It's a decent Pokemon. It can Terror, so it's probably pretty decent. Hisuian Sorrow? I don't really know. Ghost is kind of a type that I'm not super familiar with. So... Oh, there's Basculegion female, actually. I'd be a third water type, though. Oh, do I do a third water type? I think that one's so good, though. I think that one's so good. I could get Spectria, but I don't know if Spectria's worth. Ceruledge? Ceruledge isn't bad. I don't really know. I'll have to give it some thought, because I can't really think of ghost types off the top of my head, so I'll see you guys for when I end up making my next pick. So, after some deliberation, and by some, I mean it wasn't too much, there kind of was 3 options. One was the one you see at the top here in Annihilate. Annihilate actually was still an option, and was tempting because Kanna actually told me about a strategy involving it and Hisuian Electrode, where you can boost its Rage Fist with Bullet Seed, which is kind of interesting. But probably not enough for me to want to pick it, especially because that means I lose out on an A slot, and A's are kind of good. So, none of the other ghost types really interested me at, to the upper end. If Goldengo was there, obviously I'd pick that. I would have considered Dragapult if I didn't already have something super fast. So, instead, we're going with one of the lower tier ones, and one I actually considered picking up last season? Yeah, it was last season I actually considered picking this up. In the D tier slot, as everything loads up, there were actually a couple in D tier that I would have picked. Miss Magius was actually one I would have picked up. That was kind of the second option. But what I ended up with is down here with the now crossed off Spiritomb, because I drafted it. So, joining the squad is Spiritomb. This is our D tier pick, so getting all these low tiers out of the way, kind of nice, means that I can kind of pick the best Pokemon in a lot of other tiers now. I don't have to be forced into some lower tiers, which is kind of cool. But yeah, Spiritomb. I went with Spiritomb because this at least gives me the option now to start going for some sort of Trick Room stuff. It's a super slow Trick Room setter. I'd consider Dusknoir. I really like Dusknoir. But that's another C tier. That would be a third C tier. And that'll be dipping into my free points, and I still don't know how my free points are going to end up looking, if I'm going to need a million B tiers, or what have you. There's options, but I still think Spiritomb is pretty good. It also gives me a Dark type, just in case anyone's drafting Psy Spam. I don't think anyone is, but hey, it's an option. And still does respectable damage, and has good utility for being a Trick Room setter. You know, such as Will-O-Wisp, slower taunt, skill swap, thank you Java, can set up nasty plots. It can, in ally switch as well, which is always, you know, fun. It's not bad. It's a pretty reasonable Trick Room setter. One of the best Pokemon, I would say, in D tier. So, yeah, I feel pretty good about it. I can make it bulky, I can make it do some good damage on the physical or special side, which I think is really, really nice. Makes it quite versatile. So, yeah. Hopefully, Spiritomb could do some work for us as our Trick Room setter right now. But hopefully, we'll see if we can get some Pokemon that will actually work in Trick Room. Because, you know, currently our slowest Pokemon outside of Spiritomb is Feraligatr, so we will need something a little slower. For reference, I would consider something base 60 speed actually still pretty decent for Trick Room. Like in Season 8, I basically used Trick Room Sylveon the entire time, so, yeah. So, we'll see though. But we need to spin for our next typing, so I can, you know, delve into his madness again. This is turning out to be a lot more difficult than I thought. Like, I thought this was going to be a bit challenging, but oh my goodness, this has been, like, really tricky. So, yeah, let's spin that wheel. What do we got? We've got... Okay, well, there's the bug. Now, bug isn't as bad as you think. Because there's two good bug types in my opinion. Now, I want to preface this, I kind of want to avoid picking Volcarona. But at the same time, with how this team's going, Volcarona actually looks really good. So, it's tempting, I might pick it. Oh, Scizzor's an A? I don't really want to pick Scizzor as an A, I'll be honest. If it was a B, I'd pick it, but... What else have we got? I know Heracross is like a B. That's like decent. What other bugs are there? Oh, there's the Volbeat and Illumise. They got promoted from B to A. I won't be picking one of those, I don't think. I don't think that's worth. There's Pavilion. I'll be honest, it's looking like it might be a Volcarona angle. Like, as much as I don't want to draft Volcarona again, like, I'm not really seeing a lot of great other bug types. Araquanid is gone, sadly. I would have absolutely taken Araquanid. That would have been a great Trick Room sweeper. But yeah, I don't really see any great bugs, so I think it's probably going to be Volcarona, but I'll give it a little bit more thought, and I'll come back to you guys shortly. Well, that wasn't a hard decision, and not a very big time gap between the two picks either, to be honest. Yeah, as I meant, I had a quick look. None of the other bugs were super interesting. The only other one that kind of caught my eye was Ribombee. Ribombee's a B tier, and I don't have any B tiers. Sliverwing as well. Both of those were, like, pretty reasonable. But as you can see, it being crossed off, yeah, Volcarona is returning. I didn't want to, but, like, God, Volcarona's so good. It kind of fits speed tier wise. It gives us something a little bit faster than Suicune. It gives us an alternative Tailwind setter, which is kind of nice. It gives us redirection with Rage Powder. It gives us setup opportunity. It's got another form of speed control with String Shot. It's got damage control with Struggle Bug. And Will-O-Wisp. So it's got damage control on both sides. So it can be like a support Pokemon, but also it can just set up and sweep. Right now, we don't really have the the support necessary to make it set open sweep, but like the fear that I put in people last season with this thing is pretty much half the reason why I won finals. Just some weeks you just kind of bring it and you win the game. So yeah, this I ended up taking this in my actual A slot, which means I cannot pick an S plus at this point. But looking at the S pluses, the only one I would even consider is Landorus T, and I would pick Landorus I anyway if I got that kind of slot. So yeah, this also gives us a Fire, Water, Grass core now, which is nice. So yeah, that's nice. So yeah, let's just see what happens. We got our bug out of the way. Let's see if we can get something else. So let's spin that wheel. What do we got next? We have got... Oh, keep going. Give us a steal. Oh, we got a steal. Let's go. Arguably the best type in the draft, just because it's got so many resistances. And we've kind of left ourselves the opportunity to pick a good steel type as well. As I say, Goldengo's gone, when we picked our Ghost type. Goldengo is gone, but there's still some decent steel types. King Gambit is pretty reasonable, it's not bad. I'm just not super big on it because it can't Terror. There's Excadrill, and we could maybe start trying to give Sand. Probably not. Cobalion just went, but Iron Crown is there. I doubt I'm going to be going for Psy-Terrain. There's Registeel, maybe, but that's not really my kind of Pokemon. There's probably some decent steals. I'm not going to try and go for Bronzong again, because that would be, like, Volcarona's already one thing, in picking a Pokemon I used previously. Bronzong I've used 2 seasons in a row and won with. I want to avoid Bronzong, so that's one I will avoid, like, purposefully, like, even though it's a great Pokemon. So I think a lot of people have actually picked steals. This Klefki is an option, just as, like, support. So steel, there's a lot of, like, steel's a great typing, so it's going to be a bit tricky to find a Pokemon that I want of that typing. So, yeah, I'll give it some thought, and I'll see you guys, shortly. So, we're now, what, I think we're at pick 5? Yes, this is pick 5. Oh, no, this is our 6th pick, for our Steel-type pick. So, I gave it a bit of thought, and there was actually one that I saw, and I was like, if that makes it back to me, that's insane. But if not, then I might have some backups. And the one I wanted actually did make it back to me, which is really surprising. So, the one I was maybe considering was Copperaja to give me a Trick Room setter. But there's actually a really nice support Pokemon I even considered using last season, and that is Tinkerton. So Tinkerton's a B tier, so we've got our first of at least 2 B tiers. Tinkerton's great. It's got decent stats. Like, it just doesn't look too great, but like the stats are good enough, along with the amazing Fairy Steel typing. Mold Breaker's great as well. So yeah, it's got that going for it. It gives us Fake Out access, and a good Fake Out user at that. It's decently fast at 94 speed, so it can be faster than a good amount of Fake Out users. It's got Knockoff, it'll do good damage with Gigaton Hammer and Play Rough. It has Sword Stance to do damage on its own if it wants to, and just has a lot of good utility moves. So that's kind of why I've gone with Tinkerton. Like, we've got some Pokemon with like good utility and good offense, but this also gives me potentially something that can with Volcarona. Even if it's just Fake Out Quiver Dance, that's still something. But yeah, support options with things like Fake Tears. It does get both screens, which is kind of cool. I thought it got Encore, but it doesn't. But still, it's kind of hard to go wrong with Tink. Baby Doll Eyes for priority, attack lowering. Oh yeah, it does get Encore, there we go. I thought it did. So yeah, it gets a lot of good utility and will do respectable damage. It won't just sit on the field and do nothing. Just because of both Knockoff and Gigaton Hammer. So yeah, I think Tink's a great Pokemon. It's a good speed tier as well for my team. Like, I need something a bit on the faster side now, ideally. Because I've got Hisuian Electrode, who's super fast, but then we've got Volcarona. But, like, our kind of middle-high speed tiers are nice, because we've got 100 with Volcarona, Tinkerton's 94, we've got Suicune, who's 85, and then Feraligatr, who's 78. So, like, we've kind of got, like, a little bit of a gap between each, but, like, not a massive gap. So, yeah, this actually is looking really solid. Other than the kind of early disappointment of getting 2 waters, we've kind of managed to get something that looks pretty competent so far. So, let's see if the wheel will let us continue this. Please, something decent. I'll say it right now, the 2 types I really want are ground and flying, because I think Landorus Incarnate is probably one of the best S tiers that there is, that there's, like, available. So I like that, like, it's standalone as well. Like, I don't need to think about building around. Lando I is just good. There's also Iron Valiant, which I wouldn't mind picking up either, because that would give me a higher speed tier. So let's just see what we get. Spin that wheel. Oh my god, we actually got ground or flying. Holy crap. Okay, well, I'm not going to commit to the Landorus yet, because there might be another flying type that I do want. It certainly doesn't have to be a Tailwind setter, though, because I've already got 2 Tailwind setters. But there's a lot of flying types. So flying is probably one of the most open types there is. So I am going to have to look through extensively here. I can get a good flying type, thankfully, because I have, with my 3 points, I can still get an A. I've got S available, so, like I say, Lando I was one I was really looking at. I wouldn't care about Thundurus Incarnate. Maybe Thundurus Therian? Wherever that is. What's Thundurus Therian? Only a B tier? That's kind of wild. There's Galarian Zapdos. There's some good options. There's Noivern, but I don't need the fast Tailwind setter, because I've got 2 Tailwind setters already. Then we kill a Wattrel. But yeah, flying's a big one, so I kind of want to think about it a little bit, so I'll come back to you guys when I've decided on my pick. So, we're back, with also some different game corner music, because the other one was kind of driving me insane. But yeah, so, our flying type pick, yeah, it was flying. And those of you who are immediately observant will see the Pokemon that we have drafted is crossed off. And that is, in fact, our Landorus Incarnate. So this is our S tier. I talked about how Landorus Incarnate was something I did want, and I think it's going to be good. It's just a generally good Pokemon. The only thing I don't like about drafting it is it kind of makes us a bit water weak. So I want to draft something that can kind of help with the water weakness with 2 of our A slots. We've got Suicune as one of our A slots, but that's not really that great. And we've got Hisuian Electrode, which is a fast electric grass, but we're going to need something else to pressure water types, I think, if possible. So, but yeah, Landorus Incarnate, really, really good Pokemon. With sheer force, it just does so much damage. It could do spread damage with a Sandsear Storm, which is really nice. But it is 80% accurate, so you will most likely see me mostly going for Earth Power, because that is very strong. Strong Psychics, strong Focus Blasts, which I ideally don't want to go for. Nasty Plot is an option. We can't Terra this is our S, so we cannot Terra it. But yeah, it's still really, really solid. It can do a lot of damage. With just like the few coverage options it gets, and it can go physical as well. Like, it's more so known to go special just because of Earth Power, but it absolutely can go physical. It's just Stomping Tantrum won't get the boost, but instead it'll get boosted Rock Slides, which is really nice. So thank you, Java. I was out for this pick, so I only just got back home. I went to go see family. So, oh yeah, Sludge Bomb and Sludge Wave as well. More so Sludge Bomb for singles. So yeah, I think like Landorus is going to be just a really good, solid offensive Pokemon. So yeah, there wasn't too much else I could even really think that I wanted from S. Like maybe Valiant, maybe Chomp, but I don't really have a good team to support Chomp. Bax isn't great without Terra. There's not there's not a ton that I'm like super, like I really would like this. So I think Landorus is just a good solid Pokemon to go with. So that's our 7th pick now? 4, 5, 6, 7, yes, so 7. So we've got our S, we've got 2 A's, we can get a 3rd, and then that means we get either 2 D's and or a C and an E, which is basically a non-mon. We kind of need to fill out that B slot, really. So we need a B slot, and then probably, so we're probably going for an A, B, and a C, and then an E. So that's probably the plan, unless something really comes up. So yeah, let's spin that wheel, let's see what type we're going to get, so I can think about what type to draft next, and what I'm going to go for, and we are getting, ooh, a fire type, okay. So we already do have one, thanks to Volcarona. So not the best, especially because I just said I need things to deal with water types, and fire types are like the opposite of that. So we might be going for our E tier early. The other option is, so in D tier, I think it is, there's Magby, and I might go for that as a D tier, and then go for a second D tier, but D tiers aren't great, to be honest. There's only a very few good D tiers. Like, I could maybe go for a C tier fire type. There's Delphox, which is okay. But why would I use Delphox when I got Volcarona? That's the thing, I would have to draft a fire type that I look at and go, okay, when would I bring this over Volcarona? And it's like, I'm gonna struggle to find a lot of Pokemon that are like that. So, it's probably going to be an E tier fire type. Just get that out the way. Because I can't see myself drafting any other fire type. Nothing really comes to mind. Like, Cinderace, no. Like, I can't think of much. But maybe something will come up. So I'll see you guys for when I make my pick. Alright, so, our next pick, our fire type, our fire type that, I said I was probably going to be picking a low tier one, and I ended up being right. Nothing seriously, like, caught my eye in terms of fire types. So I went with E, and there is an E tier fire type that I did see, actually, that at least offers something that isn't, just, like, nothing. So, yeah, that is going to be, Growlithe, of all things. So this is an E tier, so this isn't, I don't pay anything for this. But what it does give me is Intimidate, which is something. With an Eviolite, it's at least decently bulky, and has access to things like Helping Hand and Will-O-Wisp, Charm, I guess, Scary Face and Snarl. It has some utility options, and doesn't do 0 damage. It does not very much damage, but it doesn't do 0. So it at least gives me some sort of utility that nothing else on my team currently does. So yeah, that is going to be Growlithe. It is an E tier. So if we actually look at the rosters right now, for some reason Growlithe's on there twice. Let's take off. So we need basically an A and a C. So yeah, an A, B, and a C, because we've got a B that we still have to get, and then it's either 2 extra Bs or an A and a C, in which I'm gonna be going for another A. So let's spin that wheel. Let's see what type we get. I'm hoping for Electrical Grass because I want to be able to deal with water types a bit better. And... oh, we actually do! Oh, we get another electric type. Okay. So, well, I got a grass type before, so now we get an electric type. That's really, really good. And I've got A, B, or C to get an electric type from. I think a good amount of them are gone. I think Electabuzz is actually pretty reasonable, or Electivire, for Follow Me. It could be a slower, bulkier electric type, because I do have a really fast electric type. So it could even be like a Vikavolt or something. I could just be safe. I could get a Rotom. Rotums are always good. It would also give me a ground, means I have 2 electric types and neither of them are going to be weak to ground, which would be great. So I'll give it a little bit of thought. Raikou is actually an option. Raikou is actually just pretty reasonable. So, but I also need to consider, I do want physical attackers as well. I don't think I'm going to get a good physical attacking one here, unless I go for exactly like Pawmot, which I think Pawmot's a B. Or is it a C? Pawmot being a C, that's like not bad. At least like, do I have Fake Out so far? Yeah, I've got Tink. I don't need Fake Out then. So anyway, I'll give it a little bit of thought and then I'll come back and tell you guys what I ended up picking. Alright, so that didn't take as long as I thought. I actually decided pretty quick. Before making this pick, I think it is important to lay something out on something I did decide before this, and probably should have mentioned at the start. But those who don't know draft know that after draft there is usually a grace period. Now, I didn't want to abuse grace period because I could just trade out my whole team and get something new. So, when I had this idea, I said to myself I would limit myself to 3 grace period transactions. This is relevant because one of the Pokemon I'm picking is very similar to... Pokemon I'm picking is very similar to what I already have. That I might be wanting to swap out in grace as a result. But the way I'm doing it, to make it still so that I have some element of, it's still sticking to it, is I get a maximum of 3 transactions. That's it. Unless there might be one funny meme that I want to do, in which I'll let myself do it just because it's a funny meme. So, and I'll say what that is in a sec, but the way I was going into it is I only get 3 transactions in grace, and then I'd get my normal transactions for the season. But if I want to do a transaction, I have to take the types of Pokemon that I want to get rid of, and then either keep those types, but then swap around tierings. So, for example, like if I was just looking at electric types. If whatever type I rolled for that Pokemon. So, for example, if I want to swap out Landorus and Hisuian Electrode, that's a grass and a flying type. I can swap where those are, so I could get an S tier grass type now, and a C tier flying type. Or if I want to do all 3, I could do, throw Suicunes in the mix. That's an A tier, so I can get a C tier Electrode, Hisui. Oh, sorry, an A tier, an S tier, and a C tier. So yeah, that makes sense. So I would have to get an S tier, an A tier, and a C tier, and they have to be a water type, a grass type, and a flying type, because that's what I rolled in the wheel. Or in case types were really bad and I got a lot of duplicates, and I didn't want to keep all of them, then I could take the Pokemon that I want to transaction away and re-roll their type. And whatever I get then, that's what they're stuck with. So, for example, if I don't want this Feraligatr, or maybe I want to get rid of my Bug-type Volcarona, I take those 2 and re-roll both of those, and I pick Pokemon of that typing instead. So that's how I'm going to do it. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense. But yeah, that's what I want to do in for grace period. And then I get regular transactions, and I'll be doing the same thing for that as well. But I'm going to try and avoid using transactions as much as possible, other than this grace period, to kind of make sure everything at least functions. So, we've actually been pretty good so far in terms of not having so many duplicate typings. Obviously here we're going to have to get a second duplicate. I think it's a third duplicate typing, because we're picking up an electric type. And the one I'm going with is one I mentioned briefly, and that is Raikou. I think Raikou is just the best electric type that's left on the board. I just think it's a great Pokemon. It's got a good speed tier, it does a lot of damage, it's got Scald, so it can hit ground types, which is great. So it has potential setup, it's got, like I say, it's got a good speed tier, it gets Aura Sphere, it's just a really solid Pokemon. And it also gets a fast Snarl, which is really nice. Or Eerie Impulse. The reason why I said I might have one exception is I do have a Fire type rolled, and I might do a meme of getting all the legendary dogs, because they are available. Entei is an S, so I would have to swap out my Landorus for that, but I do have a Fire type in E in my Growlithe, so that's an option. That's the only other exception I'll make, just because I think it would be funny to use all 3 legendary beasts. So, because, like, I'm already picking up 2. I think, like, the meme factor of picking up all 3 is worth me at least maybe slightly bending the rules to this. So, hopefully, if I end up doing that, you guys are okay with it. Otherwise, I'll trade it out and go back to what I had before. It's fine. But I think just because it's at least kind of funny, kind of cool to have all 3 legendary beasts, I might do that, but that's depending on what I want to do. The main reason why I'm talking about transactions is because there is a good chance now that I will be wanting to get rid of this Hisuian Electrode for a different grass type. So, that is one of the Pokemon I could see by swapping out for something else. So, because I'm going to want to make sure I can tackle, with this current, like, lineup, I'm going to want to make sure I can tackle, water types. So, having 2 electric types to do very similar things, especially when, like, it's going to be tough for me to justify bringing Hisuian Electrode with Raikou. So, yeah. Anyway, enough rambling. One of the longest segments, other than, I think, the initial one. Let's just spin that wheel and see what we're going to be picking up next. And it is going to be a fighting type? Ooh. Now, fighting's a really interesting one, because there's just a lot of good fighting types. And the fact that, I was actually thinking before this, I actually really need physical attackers. Fighting is, like, one of the most physical types there is. I'm not even going to try and think on what there is for fighting, because there's just so many. And a lot of them are really good dual typers as well. I know I won't be able to get Hitmontop at this point, but that's fine. I think Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan are available. I think Hitmonlee is a... Yeah, Lee is a B, and Chan is a C. But I think it does get Fake Out still, so maybe. But otherwise, I'm not even going to try and think too hard about it. Oh, there is the Taurus's. Those aren't bad. Maybe even the regular Paldea one, instead of going for Aqua or Blaze, because I mean, I have 3 water types. That would make 3 water types or 3 fire types, so maybe just going with the regular one wouldn't be too bad. So, there's options, but I do want to, have a little bit of a think about it, as I usually do, and I will see you guys in a little second. So, it is time to discuss our fighting type. I'm being a little quiet because it is 3 AM, but, don't make your draft picks at 3 AM. But, I actually gave it a little bit more thought. I kind of had an initial idea on what I wanted, but I realized I kind of want breakers, because my team is very special. And while that might change a little bit in Grace, the actual realistic physical attacks of this team are like a physical Landorus, which I don't want to force Landorus into being physical, Tinkaton, which is more of a support Pokemon, Spiritomb, more of a support Pokemon, and then Feraligatr. So I kind of need, like, I would say there's, like, one dedicated physical attacker. So I kind of need a physical breaker. So my original plan was to go with Tauros Combat, but instead I'm going with a different Pokemon that has breaking potential but also support potential. So it like kind of works both ways, which is really nice. And the Pokemon I'm going to be going for, my fighting type here, I actually haven't drafted yet. I'll be doing that once I've stopped recording. Is actually a Pokemon that I'm shocked is still around, and that is Mienshao. Mienshao is a B tier, so our last pick is gonna have to be a C tier. But I plan on probably doing something with Grace, because like I want I want a different grass type at least. I'll say that right now. So yeah, Mienshao's great. It's frail, but it's relatively fast. It also doesn't lose to other Fake Out users, so we've got double Fake Out, which is really nice for disruption. So it doesn't lose to other Fake Out users because it's got Intimidate, but it also can go for reckless high jump kicks and do massive damage. Or if not, just go for close combat. It got Ice Spinner, so it can actually deal with flying types a lot easier, which is really nice. It can do a lot of damage. Wide Guard is great. It's just a really versatile offensive support Pokemon. Which, to be honest, the team doesn't really have. It's got some good support Pokemon, but they're kind of not that offensive. Like, Tinkaton is probably the closest. Like, that's kind of like, it can do decent damage. Same with Suicune, it can do some decent damage. Hisuian Electrode can do decent damage. You know, these Pokemon can do decent damage, but Mienshao will do a lot of damage. And if it doesn't need to go for Fake Out support, it's got coaching as well, which doesn't really help that much with how few physical attackers I've got. But it's got the option of being super aggressive, while also having the option to be, like, supporting because of things like Fake Out, Wide Guard, Quick Guard even. Does the new move Upper Hand, does it get? No? Okay. I say, that's like a new move, Upper Hand. Oh, there it is, Upper Hand, where it's like, if the opponent uses priority, you go first and flinch them. So, maybe. Like, it's kind of a different version of Quick Guard, to be honest. But, yeah. I really like Mienshao, and I actually wanted to draft it quite some time. So, it gives the team a bit more of a speed emphasis as well, which is kind of silly, because we do have a Trick Room Pokemon. No Trick Room users, really, so I will need to figure something out with that. But we'll have to see. So, for our last type, it's going to have to be a C tier. But we'll see what we can pick up in C tier. Maybe it's something we can keep a hold of. Maybe it's something we end up having to swap out because I want different. I know I want a different grass type. That's all I know at this point. So, let's spin that wheel. Let's see what we get for our final type, and it is going to be a Psychic type. Okay, I'm actually really happy with a Psychic type. Because I can get a slow Psychic type and try and use that for Trick Room. In C tier, I'm not really sure what there is. The first thing I see is Espeon, which is like the opposite of a slow Psychic type. Like, I might even dip into D tier and go for a Duosion. I'm gonna be completely real. Mesperit's still on the board? That's a really solid Pokemon, to be honest. Just kind of doesn't fit what I have. Slowbro Gala, not quite the Pokemon I would be wanting, but still not bad. Yeah, Mesprit kind of looks like the best Psychic type in C tier. There's Rapscor as well, but that would be doubling up on Bug, and like, obviously, like, there's going to be double ups on types, just because of how this has gone. But Bug is ideally not one of the types I end up doubling up on. Though the team does have a bit of a ground weakness, so I guess maybe? I don't know. But I was thinking, like, maybe even, like, Duosion. Because, like, where's Duosion? There it is, and it's in D tier. Like, that's not a bad Pokemon. Where's Grumpig as well? I used Grumpig before, and, like, Grumpig was really solid. So, maybe? But I'll have to see. Because it's a question of, am I going to be keeping this? Am I going to be swapping it out for somewhere else? We'll have to see. But I'll see you guys for when I end up making my last pick. And then I'll probably make a cut and decide on what I want to do with my grace period picks. As a note, I have a thought about it a little bit as well. With the potential of getting up Entei. I'm probably not going to do it, so you don't need to worry about that, because I don't really want to give up Volcarona, I'll be quite honest. But I might still, just because even though Volcarona's great, there's actually some physical breakers in Bug that I wouldn't mind, such as, what's it called? Such as, what's it called? Slitherwing? I could go with, like, Sliverwing, or I could go with, like, Heracross. So, there's some options. So, anyway, I'll leave you guys to, see what's gonna happen. Well, you'll see what's gonna happen in a second, whereas I'm gonna see what happens in, like, maybe a day or so. So, see you guys then. Oh, we are here with the final pick of the draft, and, it is our Psychic type. And, before picking it, I actually did go through and I decided what I was going to do for Grace. And I will warn you, I might have gone a little bit over that threshold in what I actually want to do for Grace in terms of picks. But it does make the team a lot more competent and have more functionality, and actually gives me a chance at doing my goal of getting to playoffs. So, you know, you'll have to forgive me. But it also does include the meme that I was in fact talking about, so that's part of the reason why, because it took too many swaps to actually make it work. Anyway, so for this Psychic type pick, because this is actually a Pokemon I'm actually going to end up keeping on the team, I can get a C tier, but I'm actually just going to take an E tier here, to make it so I can swap some other stuff around. So my E tier is going to be the Psychic type, Flittle. If I can spell it. There we go. So Flittle at least is something. It's baby Espathra with, like, the worst stats in the world. But I mean, at +1 speed, like, it's still, like, decently fast. And has, like, some applications, like, what? I don't know. Like, 200 speed something? You know, it's a thing. It does get Hypnosis, which is kind of cool. To, you know, be annoying. I mean, baby doll eyes. I don't know how often this thing's going to be brought, but maybe there's an option in which I just somehow see the perfect matchup. My opponent does not have a dark type, and maybe I can somehow get this thing to go off. If it does, that'd be impressive. But for the most part, I don't see it. But I'm picking up a second E tier here. So, yeah. Just because I'm, like I mentioned before, that I was potentially going to be trying to do a swap into Entei, so we have all 3 legendary dogs. So Growlithe will be going, but I'm not going to spoil on what I want to do, because I also need to wait for Grace Period to actually begin. So this is going to be the team pre-Grace Period changes, and as I say, I am going to warn you, there's going to be quite a few, but I think it's justified. So, yeah. We've got Suicune, Feraligatr, Hisuian Electrode, Spiritomb, Volcarona, Tinkaton, Landorus, Growlithe, Raikou, Mienshao, and Flittle. So that's 2 waters. We got Grass with Electrode, Hisui, Ghost with Spiritomb, Bug with Volcarona, Steel with Tinkerton, Flying with Landorus, Fire with Growlithe, Electric with Raikou, Fighting with Mienshao, and then Psychic with Flittle. So this is not going to be the final team. I'm going to make some changes once Grace does begin, but yeah, look forward to it. Like I say, promise it's gonna look worse than it is, but I will explain when we get there. So I'll see you guys in just a moment. So for the transactions, technically Grizz hasn't opened up yet, but no one can actually take the Pokemon that I'm going to be trading for at this point. But you might see on the screen that I'm going to be getting rid of some very interesting Pokemon that will hopefully make things a bit more interesting with the draft itself. So, I'm going to be making 5 transactions. I know I said I was only going to do 3, but I mentioned I might be doing Entei, and yes. That kind of made things really awkward in terms of having to trade things. So, anyway, so the Pokemon that we're going to be trading out are Volcarona, Landorus Incarnate, Hisuian Electrode, Tinkerton, and Growlithe. For those who may have forgotten, Volcarona was a Bug type that we rolled, Landorus was a Flying type that we rolled, Hisuian Electrode was a Grass type that we rolled, Tinkerton was a Steel type we rolled, and Growlithe was a Fire type we rolled. So, the reasons for all of these, mostly it was just I didn't like how especially offensive the team was. The team didn't really feel like it had any cohesive structure by the time it kind of got back to this point. And there was the option for me to just kind of basically just stick it out, and the only Pokemon I would have actually ended up swapping was the Hisuian Electrode. But the team didn't really feel like it had any sort of, like, cohesion, like, at all. Like, I obviously it's not going to have much cohesion, but it felt even less cohesive. So, whereas, like, it was like, okay, sure, I've got, like, kind of bulky Tailwind setters, but not really bulky Pokemon to utilize it. So, I had some fast speed control with Hisuian Electrode, but that doesn't really help. I don't really have a good Trick Room mode, like, at all. So, that's what we're doing here. Now, keep in mind that I ended up drafting another E-tier pick with Flittle, because I knew I was going to be making these transactions. So, I still have 50 points, which is essentially an extra C-tier, to be drafting over these. This also means that I just get to not use Volcarona again. I've used it twice in the last 3 seasons, so not using it again I think might make people happy, because I drafted it in Season 9 and Season 11, and I won with it last season. I don't want to draft it again ideally, it's why I avoided Bronzong this season as well, because I used that 2 seasons in a row, so I'm trying to use different Pokemon. I say this in one of the Pokemon I've ended up picking up is a Pokemon I used last season and won with, but it wasn't a centralizing member, so you'll hopefully have to understand. So anyway, so the swaps, those are the Pokemon we're trading out. So keep in mind it's a Bug type, a Flying type, a Grass type, a Steel type, and a Fire type. We're keeping all the same typings. And what are we swapping them for? So the first of which, as I've continued to mention, is Entei. This is going to be our new Fire type. This is now our S tier pick. I just think, one, it's funny to have all 3 legendary beasts. I ended up picking up 2 of them, and I was like, well, it would be really funny. And Entei is just generally good. I've used it in singles, and in doubles, it's just really solid. It's not super amazing, but, like, just Sacred Fire is an amazing move. It can't be intimidated, can't be faked out. It can play a supporting role if it needs to, but also is just really good at picking things off. And with some of the support that I think I have on the team, it just makes it better. It's also more of a leaning into a style of just good stuff, bulky offense, which is kind of what the team kind of has to lean into because of no real drafting cohesion. It just needs to lean into bulky offense. And Landorus isn't exactly the bulkiest thing on the planet, whereas Entei is. Entei can be built to live hits and deal good damage. You know, just bulk it out, run in an assault vest, and then just run, like, take a hit something with a sacred fire, and then pick it off with an extreme speed afterwards. Really simple. Nothing too crazy. There's no amazing partners for it like in VGC, because we made it so you couldn't get Xian Pao plus Entei. Plus Xian Pao was taken, so we couldn't do that anyway. So this is now our new S tier pick, and this was why it was kind of really awkward to kind of finagle things around, because it meant I had to drop something else. I had to drop Landorus, but then I had to pick another ground type somewhere. It just became really complicated. So hopefully you guys understand. But yeah, as a result, it means that I'm picking up one Pokemon I've used before, and otherwise it's still all pretty new stuff to me. So, I think it's worth me. So this was our Growlithe, and now it's very, very big. And now an S tier. So, we need to make sure we pick up a new flying type, because we've dropped Landorus, and Landorus was a flying type. And we're actually still picking up a Genie, surprisingly. And it's actually becoming our new A tier slot where Volcarona was. Because it's still a good offensive special attacker, and the team actually ends up leaning towards more physical, which is kind of strange. It was really leaning into special, and now it's kind of mixed physical bias. So I did need something kind of offensive on the special side, and turns out Enamorus is actually pretty good at that. Gives us a nice speed tier, even though speed tiers are kind of nice, it's just good overall. It does so much damage that I can bulk it out, and it's just good to have something really fast that does good damage. Especially just clicking fast Moonblasts and good offensive coverage in general. Nothing too crazy in terms of Enamorus. Again, we're kind of just going with good stuff, trying to just go with good stuff offense, like good stuff bulky offense. And while this isn't the bulkiest thing on the planet, it's also versatile, because it has the ability to go on the physical side with the superpower sets. So, and this is going to also Terra as well. The only Pokemon on our team that can't Terra is Entei, because that's our S tier pick. So having Enamorus being able to Terra as well out of some of its weaknesses can be really nice. Even if it's just going for Terra fighting superpowers, that's really good. Or just like, you know, its multitude of weaknesses, we can just Terra into something that resists it. Even go for something like Terra Ground Earth powers. We can make it offensive or bulky. So I think it's pretty solid, which is kind of nice. It's just solid overall, nothing too crazy, but not bad. Kind of the Pokemon I suppose, least happy to pick up, but I needed a flying type somewhere, and it really needed to be specially offensive, so Enamorus was kind of the go-to. So next up, I mentioned we're dropping Tinkerton, and that is because I wanted a different steel type, and this is mostly because, with me dropping Landorus, I suddenly have way less for electric types. So, I needed to pick up a ground type, and I'm picking up a steel type, and unfortunately Excadrill's an A tier, so I will be picking up for the second season in a row Iron Treads. This is the only Pokemon that I'm picking up that I've used before, but Iron Treads wasn't a major player. It came to a lot of games, and it was a Pokemon I quite liked, but it wasn't centralizing 20 games. It's just a solid Pokemon. Because of the Cork Drive booster speed, it doesn't really share the same speed stat as Enamorus. And because of that, it can also it gives me another form. It gives me a form of fast speed control because of booster speed plus Rock Tomb, which sounds dumb, but it was pretty much the main set that I brought like most times with this thing. And kind of weirdly enough, this now I didn't realize this. This now gets Supercell Slam, which actually means it has like a physical electric type move, which is kind of cool. It means that bulky water types aren't nearly as much of a problem for it. But otherwise it's just a solid Pokemon. Again, going with that bulky offense style, it's got the option to do body press things, like Iron Defense Body Press. It can combo with Enamorus, like, you know, Fairy Steel is a good combination, and while Enamorus can't do any crazy spread stuff alongside Iron Treads, it means Iron Treads has the option of just spamming Earthquake, at least next to something, which is nice. So, yeah, nothing too crazy, but I think it's pretty decent. There's also Hard Press now as well, which is kind of interesting. Maybe we'll mess about with that. We'll see if Iron Treads gets to do any different roles. Maybe it'll have more opportunities to be a defensive steel type, like using Iron Defense Body Press, because last time we had Bronzong. So that kind of became like, oh, if I'm going to do Iron Defense Body Press, why wouldn't I do it with Bronzor? Now I don't have that option, so if I want to do something like that, I might be doing it with Iron Treads. Or with another Pokemon that we ended up drafting, which I'm really excited about. For our next one, this was one that I was always going to make. I mentioned pretty early, as soon as I mentioned transactions, I mentioned I was going to be swapping out Hisuian Electrode, because I wanted a different grass type. Now that I knew I was having an electric type, I knew I wanted to make sure I could handle water types a bit easier, especially because, like, I've got Entei at my top end. At the time, obviously, I had Landorus, but still, like, Iron Tread's still pretty top end for me. So I want to make sure I have ways to take out water types, and it's something I had a season where I was, like, kind of struggling to take out water types, and ever since I've been like, okay, I need to make sure I have at least good ways to break water types, because otherwise they can be an issue. So I ended up going with a different C-tier grass type that I saw, and I was like, this is actually, like, really solid in C. Like, there was some B-tier grass types that I was, like, looking at that shared the same typing, and I was like, this is arguably better in some instances than those Pokemon. So I ended up grabbing up Chestnut. So Chestnut was a C-tier. Both Breloom and Hisuian Decidueye were B-tier. So I was like, obviously Breloom makes sense, it's got Spore, it's got the super powerful Mark Punches. But I didn't think Hisuian Decidueye was that much better. Obviously there's the Scrappy thing, that it has Scrappy. But Chestnut, on the other hand, can actually do some really solid stuff. This is a much better Iron Defense Body Press Pokemon, which is really nice. It can set up Leech Seed. It can be an endgame Pokemon. But it can also just be a good, solid, bulky offense mon. Just to click buttons with. It's got amazing coverage. It's got setup potential. It's slow enough where it could be used in Trick Room. 64's like pushing it, but it's slow enough where it could. Not saying it will, but there's the option. But otherwise, it's just good at clicking buttons. It's got some good supporting options. It does give us a second fighting type, but honestly, I'm kind of okay with that. It's not the worst thing. I was always having a flying weakness, no matter what I was doing. So, yeah, just grabbing this, it felt like more of a solid way to kill water types, which is what I wanted. I wanted more ways to make sure that water types weren't an issue. And it also gives me something else a bit on the bulkier side, which is kind of nice. So, yeah, again, leaning towards it into just good stuff, bulky offense, which is pretty much the way that I'm going to have to play this. So, yeah, I think this is really solid. Just a good overall Pokemon. Just because of how bulky it is. Like, it's easily a Pokemon that can take a hit and then swing it back, but also it's fast enough where it can be used in Tailwind, if it is invested in speed, because, like, it doesn't need much speed to be outspeeding a good amount of things in Tailwind, like, the 124, and boom, it's at 200 speed, 132, and it's now outspeeding max speed base 130s, so, and we've got 2 good Tailwind setters now. Because Enamorus does get Tailwind, I forgot to mention that. This gives us an alternative Tailwind setter, and I actually can see myself just being like, screw it, I just want fast Tailwind. But obviously we still got Suicune, so, yeah. Solid Pokemon, can't go... I don't think this thing is going to be super amazing, but I think... I have faith in Chlorus. I have faith in Chestnut. It reminds me of Chlorus a little bit, where it's just kind of like a good stuff Pokemon that's going to hit hard. Just the typing's a little bit worse, but it's one that I'm a little bit better covered for now. Because beforehand it was really bad. I think it was way worse beforehand. Because I ended up wanting to draft a bug type. I know, shocking, I actually found a different bug type that I wanted to draft, and that's why a lot of this kind of was so difficult. I was like, wait a minute, there's another bug type that I actually kind of want here. That I could have drafted in the Psychic type slot, funnily enough. But I was like, like, that means I have so many flying weaknesses, it's like not even funny. And the only way I've really got to deal with it is, like, Raikou. And that's it, because, like, Tinkerton was not really an answer to flying types. In singles, maybe. In doubles, no, they can just ignore the thing. Raikou can at least attack them. But like, it just meant there were so many flying weaknesses. So, yeah, the Pokemon is actually using those 50 points to give us an extra C tier. Is actually Rabsca. So, this can technically go next to Treads as well because it's got telepathy. But I feel like Rabsca's just solid. I needed something that was good in Trick Room, and this is pretty solid. It's got a good stat spread. Like, it's decently bulky. It's got a good move pool, surprisingly. Like, just the fact that it's got its Dual Stab, which is pretty decent, along with like ground with Earth Power, Fairy Dazzling Gleam, what's it called? Shadow Ball, Energy Ball, Power Gem for some reason. It's just another good Trick Room setter. There is Revival Blessing as well, which I think actually might push this thing over the edge. Because one of the things that I thought about, like, as soon as I saw this, because, like, setting up Trick Room, don't have the best Trick Room support Pokemon. Let's say that real quick. My only real way to do it is, like, fake out Trick Room with Mienshao. Like, that's not very good. Let's be clear here. It's just gonna have to be raw Trick Rooming. It's there's no redirection anymore. We lost our one redirection with Volcarona. But what we can do is if we're just suiciding with Mienshao, we can bring it back to be used outside of Trick Room once the Trick Room ends. So, like, last turn of Trick Room, we can just go for Revival Blessing, bring back the fainted Mienshao, and use that combined with one final Pokemon. Because if we're doing Trick Room, we're doing this plus Spiritomb, like, or maybe Chestnut, or maybe do we have something else at 60 speed? I don't think so at this point. So, yeah. But it's also not just good in Trick Room because it's so bulky. Again, Revival Blessing is a good move, and if I want a second chance with some Pokemon, that is an option. It's not the worst thing on the planet. I will actually consider it over, I think some people just kind of look at it and go, kind of gimmicky, especially for doubles, but I think it's got options. It also can do, like, Calm Mind / Iron Defense stuff with Store Power and Recover, so there are options there. It's not bad. It's not bad, and I kind of saw it, and I was like, this is really the best thing I'm going to get for Trick Room. Like, nothing else I can really get works for Trick Room. I would have liked something like Copperaja, that's taken, so, yeah. So, that is our new team. Again, no, it's a lot of transactions, but, hopefully you understand, and it's a lot of Pokemon I've never used before in BGC, so this is the team as it looks now. So kind of like where things were and where they in the drafted order, I guess, is what this looks like. But to make things a bit clearer, this is what it looks like tier order. So we've got Entei, Raikou, and Suicune. We've got all the dogs. We've got Enamorus, Mienshao, Treads, Feraligatr, Chestnut, Rabsca, Spiritomb, and Flittle. So, it's not bad, honestly. Like, obviously, it used a few more transactions than I would have liked, but we did get to... We've drafted all the dogs, and I think that's really funny. So, like, hopefully that meme kind of helps out a little bit. But yeah, otherwise, it's just kind of upper-end speed stuff, that we've got bulky Tailwind to kind of make sure we can get speed control with. We have 2 Ghost Weeks, well, one of them's Flittle, so it doesn't really matter. So essentially 1 Ghost Week, with no resists, which is why I'm a bit worried, because I didn't get a Dark type. I didn't roll Dark type, I didn't roll Normal type, so Ghosts are a bit scary. Flying, it's 3 and 2, that was like 4 and 2. And it was just like, ugh, that's really bad. So, yeah. I cut down a bit on the flying weaknesses. And Fairy kind of went up a little bit as well, because... I forget why. Oh, because I dropped Volcarona. So I had 2 fire types. But, yeah. I've got 2 different fighting types now, because I've picked up Chestnut as well. But they do pretty different things. One's really bulky, and will just kind of wants to break things on a slower side, whereas Mian Xiao kind of wants to break things on the faster side. So, and as you can kind of see, it looks a lot more balanced in terms of stats. I think if you take out Flittle, then it'll probably look a little bit better, but yeah. But like, there's essentially two mixed attackers because Spiritomb can go physical or special, and so can an Amorous. But then there's Raikou who's special, Suicune who's special, and Rabsca who's special. And then there's Chestnut who's physical, Feraligatr who's physical, Entei who's physical, Mienshao who's physical, and Trezzet physical. So it's a bit more leaning towards physical, but let's be real here. Amorous is going to be a special attacker most of the time. And also, the team isn't super weak to Intimidate because, like, a bunch of the Pokemon that would be that are physical attackers are actually kind of immune to it. So Entei and Mienshao both have inner focus, so they can't be faked out or intimidated. So that's two of them. And then if an Amorous goes physical, then it's going to be running Contrary, and then that's also immune to Intimidate. In fact, it's a very big benefit. So it's not really an Intimidate weak team. It just means I'm going to be kind of forced into bringing some Pokemon specially, some weeks. So that's the only thing that's a bit awkward. But, like, between the four that we kind of have that are kind of standard special attackers between Raikou, Suicune, Amorous, and Rabsca, I can see myself very easily bringing at least two of those, like, every week. And that's all I need. So, just to make sure, like, Iron Defense Body Press stuff, like, doesn't completely hard wall me. I can go Special Spiritomb, and I think generally Special Spiritomb's better. So, because it, like, unless I want to go for exactly Poltergeist plus Sucker Punch as my coverage on the stabs, just going generally Shadow Ball plus Dark Pulse is probably a little bit better. So, yeah, not too bad, honestly. It looks competent, which is more than I can say I was expecting. It looks pretty decent, and I think we can potentially get to my goal, which is just to get to playoffs. I don't care about winning the season. There's no chance I win the season with this team. But I think I can get to playoffs with it, and that's kind of the challenge here, is to see if I can get to playoffs. With a really interesting and strange team that I didn't have much control over even drafting. I had some control, obviously, but yeah, no, it's really interesting, and I'm really excited to see how things go. So hopefully you guys stick around and see how the weeks go. So thank you very much for watching. I'm looking forward to this. Hopefully you guys are too, and I'll see you guys then. Peace.